Hi, and welcome to Transformation Now. We are dedicated to education, support, encouragement, and programs about life, career, relationships, finances, things that can really help you find the real you and just fill you with hope, help, humor, and heart. So I'd like to ask you a couple questions before we start that will be applicable to our beautiful guests today. First one is, are there times in your life where you don't really see how awesome, capable, and strong you really are? And also, how do you self-identify? Are you experiencing and embracing all of your gifts and talents regardless of what your history has been?
Today, exciting program with Melissa Minassian.
Yes.
An amazing lady with a powerful story. Oh, we can't wait for this. Of rising above big obstacles, finding your true identity.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Greetings. I'm Rita Rocker Kraft, founder, producer, and host of Transformation Now, which is part of SoaringHigher.rocks. As a speaker, author, and trainer, my heart has always been to provide life and career transforming programs that you can start using immediately and ones that will last a lifetime.
Hi, my name is Carmelita De La Guardia, co-host of the show here, and I'm an international cabaret singer, pianist, and also songwriter, and as well I do a lot with international women's issues. Translator, medical translator, Spanish, English here, and also in Fremont. Welcome.
And now I have the privilege of introducing Melissa Minassian. I'm going to read this. She has a great bio here. And she's a serial entrepreneur with a contagious passion for life, growing brands, and helping others attain their dreams. She is very successful in a multiple group of industries. She's a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. She's a best-selling young adult author of the Portal Chronicles, which is a novel series. She is also lead singer and writer for alternative pop band Ephemeral, and founder of inspirational beauty nonprofit Brave Beauty Collective, where she encourages women to see that they are beautiful from the inside out. As business development executive for Edge Publications, Melissa uses her love for people as well as her marketing, branding, and out-of-the-box business sense to cultivate relationships and to grow brand bandwidth for Edge and its many partners and contributors. Melissa, we welcome you today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you.
Melissa, would you share with us today about your growing up years, trying to fit in this box that you had talked about, and not allow you to really be who you really were? So could you tell us the story?
Yeah, well, I think I've learned as I've grown and matured that I am a chronic people pleaser, and I've had to really fight that. And I think in my growing up years, especially just my parents, I always tried to fit in a box. And then later, once even in my career, professional life, I realized I was really just trying to fit in a box. In my entire life, a lot of the decisions I made was constantly, they weren't ever true to me and who I was as an individual. They're more so about what I thought I should do and what I thought was, and it was very cookie cutter, and I just had to fit in that box. And so I think it was not until I was maybe in my 30s that I started really exploring, like, who is Melissa, and what's my true self, and what does that look like for me?
So any examples on that, or just, you mean in school, or just your activities, or just anything?
Well, I think like the first time I started really realizing it was an issue was right after I had gotten out of college. And college was one of those things that it was like a lot of my decisions were like, it's what you should do. So I went to college because you should go to college, and that's just what you do. That was the natural next step from what I knew. There was no other options, and it was a great experience, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got my education. But just the source of why I was doing what I was doing wasn't organic to me, and it wasn't honoring of myself. So, but yeah, went to college, met a boy, got married, and right out of college, I got a really amazing job and found myself as right out of college within a year, the director of this marketing of this nonprofit. So it was like all these little things kept happening that I was like, okay, it's what should happen. This is great. Like we're on a roll. And but realized really quickly, like everything that kept happening, it fit this narrative of what I felt was supposed to happen. But yet I was so empty and I was so unhappy and I could not figure out for the life of me, like everything is going as it should. So why am I so unhappy? And started realizing as I unpacked that I wasn't being honoring of myself. I wasn't doing things that were organic to me and that I loved. And that ultimately I just didn't know who Melissa really was. I had so many masks and I tried to just please everybody to the point that I didn't know who I was and what I liked.
And I've heard, times too where people, it's like, well, my mom or my dad expected me to be a doctor or a dentist or whatever the case may be. And sometimes I think parents live vicariously through their children. I didn't get to do this growing up, so I want you to do this growing up. And that makes it a little difficult. I know that you've seen God bring key people across your path to open new doors, doing things that He wants you to do, and also including living a life that you love instead of one that you hated. I love that term because so many times we don't live the life we love. We live the one we've actually hated because that's what was expected of us. So you want to just talk about that a little bit?
I do these videos online that are like little tidbit, like little nuggets of inspiration and joy for people, and just things that I've learned along the way that I want to share, and they're called Melissa Minutes. So if you guys are ever on Facebook, look it up, Melissa Minassian, and I'll have little Melissa Minutes. But I always close in the same way. I always tell people to dream boldly, to love extravagantly, and to live authentically, because there's purposes and plans for your life that only you were perfectly designed to fulfill. And I think that's the biggest thing that I found is that I think my first connection that God aligned me with was just Himself. And I think my biggest takeaway is that once I really started digging and figuring out, like, who is Melissa and how do I find her? Who is this person that God created me to be? I realized I had to figure out who He was first, and I had to intimately begin to get to know Him before I could know myself, and get to know His character before I could know the pieces of His character that He's put in me. And so I think that's been my biggest takeaway, is just getting to know Him. And I have a very deep belief. I hear Him. I've always heard Him clearly, but I feel like everyone can. Like, it's just a muscle you have to exercise. So I think when I came out of that marketing job that I was discussing, and I actually ended up coming out of my marriage, and it was a very traumatic situation, but won't get into that today. But I don't know, I guess I found myself at rock bottom, where all these things that should be happening started falling away, and all was left was me and God. And so it was really a kind of a beautiful thing, a beautiful disaster that happened to me, though, where I began to discover who God is, and then I began to discover who I am, and then He has along the way, like just these key people, as you listen to Him, guide you to the right place, right time, and just, the writing a novel, forming a band, which I never thought I would do. I've always loved to sing, never thought I would lead a rock band, so that's been really fun.
How long have you had this band?
Yeah,
how long have you been doing
about
that?
3 years, and that was actually something that I gave up along the way because it didn't fit the mold. And it wasn't acceptable in my mind to do that, and so, so that's been a fun thing.
Because I ask you that because I started my singing career later in my life, in my 50s.
Yes, I love it.
And it's wonderful.
And it's never too late, I feel like. It really never is, to honor who God made you.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, everyone has something to give to the world, and we do the world a disservice when we're not true to who God made you.
Exactly.
Not keep pushing those things down.
Yeah.
Well, you told us about the intimate relationship that you have with God. So once you discovered this, one more thing I wanted to ask you, your children and all that, they were involved. So how did they see you, if I can ask? Were they worried about what was going on with you? I mean, did they see you unhappy as well?
I have one little girl. Her name is Lena Grace. She is now 9. She was under a year when everything started kind of falling apart with my marriage. So I don't think she ever realized, I think which is kind of the grace of God. Like, she's only ever known happy mom and mom who's walking in her calling and mom who's found her identity, which I love. I love that that transformation has happened in me because I know it's pivotal for her, and I just pray that like she doesn't have to walk so many of the hard things I had to walk because I've overcome that. And I just pray that that curse over her is broken and she doesn't have to go through that because I've won that battle. So, yeah.
And then the other thing too, as far as like relation, that you had differ from the important relationships that you've had with your dad, husband. So could you tell us about that?
Yeah. Like just pivotal relationships with just men in my life, or?
Yes, I mean, as far as, because that is something that affected you.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think I have an amazing dad. Something I think I've unpacked is that he was a workaholic growing up. And so that was something that did lend itself to me marrying the man that I did, because I was used to like a man loving you, but just kind of in an absent way. And it's something that I think it's beautiful how God works, because even as I went through my divorce, I began going through therapy and getting really healthy. And then that actually bled into my family, because I started kind of talking to my parents about like, hey, this is something I'm learning that like we all kind of dealt with. They began to go to therapy. Then my brother and sister went to therapy. So just the healing that has occurred in my life because of that, it's just, again, the whole beautiful disaster thing, how God really does redeem things like that. So, but I think, abuse happened in my relationship that I was in as well. And I think a lot of that as well, it went down to the worth that I felt I had in myself at the time. And again, I think it went back to the people pleasing, because I felt like a failure. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't, which is impossible. I've learned that now. It's impossible to please everyone all the time. But I think because I was such a people pleaser and I couldn't please everyone, I really felt like a failure. I really felt worthless. And so it allowed me to be in a relationship where that was kind of played out on a day-to-day basis.
And I know from my own personal experiences with abuse as well, that so many times, well, I must not be good enough, I must not be worthy enough, because I keep getting, all this stuff thrown at me and mistreated. So is that reaffirming the fact that I'm really not worthy, I'm not good enough? Because we do.
And those messages come out, and then you already, I think it was something that was already deep-seated in me. I already agreed with them without realizing it consciously. Yes. So when someone said them out loud, it was like, oh, that must be true about me. I must be worthless. I must not be good enough. I must be, not lovable, whatever it is,
And those things can really affect you. I mean, they did, I grew up from age 5 feeling unworthy. And, then got into relationships that just kept reaffirming that, so to speak. And so I know that could cause so many people, men and women both, to feel totally unworthy. Well, I guess that's all I deserve. So I'm not going to do what I know I'm capable of doing. I keep comparing what I consider my liabilities with other people's assets, because I don't see that in me, because it's been stuffed so far down in there. And yes, it's very painful.
Well, and I think the biggest piece for me to break free of that came with that figuring out my identity, but figuring out what God said about me.
Yes.
That was huge. And then the more time I spent at his feet, and I just kind of brought, like, this is what I believe about myself. What do you say about that? And he just began to speak truth over me. And I think you begin to believe it the more you hear it, right? So when he starts telling you, like, you are worthy, you are redeemed, you are good enough, these are all the talents, and these are all and begins to give you ideas and connect you with people that validate that. I mean, I never thought I would be an author of a young adult series. I never thought I would work for 2 successful magazines and have so much fun doing it, or lead a rock band, or be a successful realtor. I mean, just all the things that this has all been within it, like probably like a 7-year period too, that just transformation. So it's so cool to see what he does.
That is awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you said your heart's desire has been to be a godly example, not only to your daughter, but to the women in whatever place they are in life, because we're all in different places right now, and some are just now struggling to get out of the pit and rise, to help them understand that where our journey can take us if we let it.
Yes.
So have a little more to say on our journey and how we need to let it go.
Yeah,
forward.
I actually have a tattoo that says "Just Be"
That's
because
beautiful.
I think I am kind of type A, and I think because of my past and getting hurt, I love to control. I have the propensity to do that, so I think that's been my biggest lesson, and will be like I think throughout my life. I've just given myself grace. Like I know it's going to be a process, but yeah, just to let go and let God, and I think it's a constant daily decision to trust Him is hard.
That's
So
one thing I
hard.
hope our
Trust,
viewers
yes.
really remember today is let go and let God.
Rest.
And sometimes it's like,
Rest.
get out of the way.
know.
Because yesterday I went to a women in ministry brunch, and as Jackie Marr was going around talking to people, you know, why are you here? And I said, because God said, tell my daughters they are my beautiful daughters,
Yeah.
made in His image.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as far as now, stepping out of this fear,
Yeah.
excuse me, and doing it anyway, right?
Yes.
So one area you mentioned in going forward in real estate, you know, so something you never saw yourself doing, as you were saying. So
Yeah.
I mean, how did that start?
Yeah, well, and I think even that was like a divine connection, how God uses and redeems things. So I was actually dating a gentleman who was a realtor. His entire family did real estate, and we were kind of talking next steps in our relationship, and he was like, I always thought I'd be married to a realtor, and like we would do this as a family, and this is what I grew up around. And so we were kind of talking marriage, and so he was like, what if you get your real estate license? And he'd kind of seen like how I marketed my book, and it was like, you can do this with real estate, you'll just kill it. And so it was one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that, but sure. So halfway through real estate classes, the relationship did not last, but the real estate did. But I love how you look back at life and just how the pivots that happen and how, you know, God uses those
People.
beautiful disasters and those, to like get you to where you need to be. And I think that's another part about resting is that I've just learned like God will get you where you need to be. Like just,
Trust.
trust.
Yes.
And but that's how it inadvertently happened. Yes.
Wow. That's so cool. But, you
Yeah.
know, I've seen over and over again, as we all have, sometimes God brings a person, like maybe the former boyfriend, into our lives for a purpose
Yeah.
to help be a stepping stone to the next level.
Yeah,
But they weren't
absolutely.
meant to be there long term, but as a
Absolutely.
step. And I think sometimes we don't want to let go of something. Because in a way we have to establish a new normal again. This
Yes.
person, this job, this thing is no longer in our lives. But yet
Yeah.
if we realize, hey, this is temporary, it was a blessing because it helped take me to the next step.
Absolutely.
That's like, thank you, God. You
Yeah.
just let go.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we would love to hear more about your book, Portal Chronicles, and you can talk to the audience about that and just share a little bit about how that all came to be, because this is apparently part of a trilogy, correct?
Yeah, actually 5 books.
5
in the
books,
series.
okay.
Yes, so
Good.
first one is Fly, which I have been busy with other jobs, so I haven't, we all juggle right here.
Yeah.
So, but Fly is the first book, which is super exciting. It came out, gosh, I want to say about 3 years ago. It's been a minute. But actually Fly came about from a very vivid dream. And
Wow.
even when I talk to like high schoolers and I talk to women's groups a lot, and I always talk to them about finding your true self. Like, what did you do as a child? I always go back to that. Like, before the world shaped you and told you what you should be, like, what did you do naturally and like what was organic to you? And something I always loved to do was to write stories, and that was something my dad and I did. Even like at night, we would like make up these really vivid, crazy stories before bed. So I love that's something to me that I know God put in me that I'm supposed to do, and I love writing. And even with writing music, I'm a word nerd. Like I love putting thoughts together. So, but this actually came together with a vivid dream, and I journaled it, and then it just wouldn't leave me alone. Like I wanted to just kind of forget it, and like I journaled it, I got it out, like go away, and then it kept coming back, and I started realizing that it is a story that I was supposed to write. So.
So
Yeah.
how did you go from there then to actually getting it in book form? And again, I did read this.
Yeah.
She gave me one of these after it came out, and it's absolutely awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Yeah, if it wants to sit up there. Yeah, but it's about Everett and Sophie. It is a young adult novel, but I have had a lot of adults that love it too. But it kind of,
I love the cover.
yeah, thank you. And I feel like Sophie is
Butterfly.
very much me. It really is a girl who's kind of coming into her own and finding her true self, and finds out that she really is special, and she has these special gifts, and it is kind of a paranormal. So she has a lot of supernatural talents that she didn't realize she had. So it's fun.
But she starts working through them.
Yeah.
And then with the Portal Chronicles, what comes now after that?
Yeah, next book is called Rise, which I have about halfway done. And then I think I told you as well, I through just kind of working through my past and things I had experienced in relationships, started writing a book called Untethered, a Not So Fairy Tale, which is kind of a fairy tale that went wrong. And in so many words, it was kind of my story in this fairy tale world about a girl who thinks she has it all together. She's the queen of this land, and then everything. She starts kind of figuring out truths, and like her life is not what it cracked up to be. So, but then as I've been writing that book, realizing that it's kind of a prequel to this whole series, they all kind of fit together. So that's been kind of a fun thing to mastermind when I have time. So yeah, but the two, Rise is part of the Portal Chronicles series, and then Untethered will come out as well.
Oh, can't wait to read it.
I know, me too, because I haven't, so I'm anxious to read them
Yeah.
too. So you've established a nonprofit, and it's called Brave Beauty Collective,
Yes, ma'am.
where a community of women will learn more about truth and shift from a worldview of themselves, as you're telling us here, to being God's daughters. What is your goal for these roundtable programs that you have?
Yeah, I think Brave Beauty came about because there's a lot of lies in my past relationships that I've been through, and I started realizing that I really hate lies. I just, as I got free as well, was like, I'm gonna start telling the truth. Like, I can't live a lie, I can't be someone I'm not, like, and just started realizing how free I feel when I don't live in that bondage. So from that became very, very transparent with where I was, and I think through that, though, other women started coming out and being like, oh my gosh, like, I don't tell anyone this, but I've been through X, Y, Z. And they started really relating, and I think the truth does set us free. And whenever someone else hears you telling the truth, they can relate, and they start telling the truth. And I think it's just a spiritual truth that, like, they can't even help it. It's just like gravity. It's just a law of nature. Like, they just start kind of like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I haven't told this to anyone. So that's kind of how it started, though, where I wanted to create these roundtable programs where we can really truthfully get some power play women who are just killing it in their industry. And we do videos, though, where they all sit around a round table, we throw a theme out, and we film what kind of comes out and the truths around that they have learned. So
Absolutely, it's beautiful.
That is amazing.
So as far as we're going to wrap up here.
Well, we have a few more minutes. Clock.
So,
but yes, you know, and with that, one of the things that I have found is so important is vulnerability, because, you know, I've gone to hear speakers and I knew they had a lot of trials in their life, but they were so careful that I really didn't go away with much of anything. And I know I used to do a lot of speaking for Christian women's groups and different organizations, and a lot of times I had to really, I didn't have to, but I felt like I was supposed to say things about my past, you know, the drugs, the alcohol, getting beat up, doing, you know, losing my son for many years, so many things.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I really don't want to say all this because it's going to put a bad light on me. But then I would always have people come up to me and say things like, oh, your message wasn't anything near what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what were you expecting? Well, we thought you were going to talk about when you were Mrs. Nebraska, or you did this or that. And I said, no. I said, God called me to be one to help women when they've been knocked down, get up, dust their knees off, get back in the race. And another time, two ladies came up to me up in, I think it was North Dakota, and they says, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I said, what's going on? And they said, well, our husbands are both in jail right now from dealing drugs. And they said, you really gave us hope. Thank you so much. So I see what you're doing with your roundtable, Brave Beauty, is that you're helping women to be vulnerable, to get it out of them. Because when they get it out of them, it's going to help them so much to clear all that out. And be able to move forward and not have all that gunk in there. Do you want to just add anything the last couple minutes here?
Yeah, and I think, like, with my story, when I was married, it was cookie cutter. It was perfect. We lived on a golf course, and we had good cars, and we had good jobs, and we had a beautiful daughter, and we had a huge, beautiful home, and everything was perfect. And on Facebook and on social media, everything was perfect. So when I started kind of coming out with truth, I think people were really jarred. So like you're saying, I think I really had to break free of that and be like, we are not perfect. And women that have come forward to me, even, like, usually it's from like astute families that on the outside everything looks beautiful, but it's not. And so it's like, let's be honest, because we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to heal. We're not going to get better until we're really honest about what's festering underneath and the ugly that can be there.
Yes.
So I think that's the beauty of it is with it
Yes.
comes healing, and that's what
So
we
much
need.
healing, because
Yeah.
we're getting rid of all the infection in a way
Yes,
that's
yes.
And
inside
it's
of
kind of
us.
like my story too. Same way. I was,
Yeah.
it was perfect. Everything was wonderful. And,
Right.
And then when.
And then it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
But no one
You know,
knew what was
and
going on behind
same
closed doors.
thing.
Right.
I always wanted to make everyone happy. So
Yes.
this, yeah, this is
Yeah.
it's tough. But yeah, when you break through, it's it. It's
Powerful
wonderful.
though, yes.
Yes.
And now you're your true self, and
Yes.
even singing all of it, like
Oh, yes.
you're honoring yourself,
Yes.
and it's gorgeous. I love
Yes.
it. So power to
It's
you.
been a pleasure to have you.
Helping
Thank
God's
you.
kids
Yes.
be set free once and
Yes,
for all,
that's
and
all it's
that's
about.
so important. So again, we want to thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Next time we see you, it will be to interview Toby Meyer, aka Santa Claus, and he's going to share what brought him from severe life trials to one of victory, and seeing God's hand move, just like he did with Melissa, seeing God's hand move in incredible ways and restore his life and really create a new life. So we invite you to join us next time, and God bless you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.